thank you for coming to our wonderful and full panel today.
The panel table is full, you are correct.
Yes.
I chose to come here as a last-minute decision over a panel that I had been planning on attending for like 2 weeks. So.
I'm usually a
Wise choice.
last-minute decision, so that's okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
You could have been anyone
You
else.
already won something.
And you chose us.
I love it.
As long as you're not offended easily, then you're fine.
What would she have to be offended about?
The name of our podcast.
Nothing offensive about that.
Speaking of which, should we introduce ourselves?
Well, that is a very good first step.
Right, yeah.
Yes, that would be very good.
We go left to right, right to left, whatever you want to do.
I'll start with them.
So we are Nerdy Bitches Podcast. We are two geeky ladies podcasting our way through pop culture, and we do book clubs and movies and all sorts of nerdy stuff. So,
Yeah. And this is Liz,
oh, sorry, Liz.
and I'm Heather.
Yeah.
I am Walker the Geek, and I talk about comic books. Starting to branch out into some other things on YouTube, maybe. Check it out, walkerthegeek.com. Everything is there. So, yeah, that's me.
And I'm one of the hosts of Three Beers and a Mic. Obviously, I'm only one, so.
But he's got the beers.
I have two others.
There we go.
I did bring the beers, though. We talk geeky news and while we drink beer, so.
And we are Raging Nerds. I'm John. This is the wonderful Erica.
Yes, I'm Erica, aka Thirsty. We are Raging Nerds, where we'll rage all over your eardrums. We talk about everything nerdy, geeky, gamer, very informative podcast, and we also love to have fun and go to conventions. So this is, I mean, you don't go to conventions, but I go to conventions all year long, so
I work retail.
yeah, I'm glad I don't have to. But we are so glad to be here, and I'm so glad that I get to, do this podcast panel with all my fellow Houstonian podcasters.
Oh, yes, it's so long to actually see you.
I know. Like, so we're local podcasters. We see each other at Comicpalooza.
Once a year.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
We live within a 25-mile radius.
Once a year, though.
Once a year.
That's
Yes.
it.
I have a group of friends that we all live in Houston. We only see each other when we go to QuakeCon in Dallas.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly it.
Just
Yes.
like that.
6 hours away from the city we all live in.
Sounds legit. I'm in. All right, so we're here to
So-
talk about podcasting when you're a geek. I
Yes.
guess, or
Who
podcasting
here is interested or does a podcast? Both?
Everyone.
Yeah, I think you need to segment that into two questions.
Yeah. Who's interested? Who does a podcast? All right. So hopefully we'll give you a little information that'll help you along and get you to where you want to be. So I think the first thing would be, what are you going to talk about?
Yeah, we when we set ours up, we decided that there weren't a lot of female podcasts because we've been doing this for about 4.5 years, and there just weren't a lot in the space. I mean, we have since seen a huge explosion of that, which is awesome. But we just wanted to we wanted to make something that we wanted to listen to. And we sat down and had a long, I think it was my birthday party or something. We sat and had a conversation with like 25 other people there that we just completely ignored and just chatted between ourselves. And, she decided, oh, hey, we should do a podcast. So I was like, great, what's a podcast? I was never a podcast person. I didn't really even know what they were. But we've had so much fun doing this and, being friends, doing it. And somebody asked us, they invited us on their podcast because they do a friendship one. And they're like, who's podcasting with their best friend? I'm like, who isn't? Like, you really going to do a podcast like forever with somebody you're not alone.
I am not friends with myself.
Not friends. But again, when you're coming up with what are you going to talk about, it has to be sustainable, right? It can't just be what are we going to talk about today, and then, because then you just go like real fast. So.
You definitely have to find your niche in the market, and the smaller the niche you get, it is harder to concentrate on that topic. There's a lot of podcasts that just do Disney movies, podcasts that just do Harry Potter, and just imagine only doing Harry Potter. You have to stretch it out. You have to figure out what you're going to talk about.
I know a girl who only does the politics of Harry Potter.
And that's amazing. But again,
years. I'm like, how is
yeah,
But having that
exactly.
niche actually, it gets you a core audience.
Yes,
so
it really
that's a good
does.
place to start and grow from there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we started with a merry band of about 12, and that lasted until like last month, so it's pretty cool.
So how do you guys outline your podcast? How do you decide what your topic's going to be like and how you're going to start those segments?
Do we do an outline?
We generally, yeah. So, and everybody has a different way of doing it. And you want to do, when you're creating a podcast, you do the one that you're going to be able to sustain and appreciate, because your audience is looking for you. If you go and say, you know what's really cool right now? True crime is really cool right now. I'm going to do true crime. If you want to continue to do true crime, it's difficult,
Yeah.
especially if you
It's a
have
lot of
no
work.
interest in it. You just want listeners.
What's a ton of work too. I
Yeah,
mean,
way too much work.
well, I'll say like on ours, we'll come up with a topic, or like for example, last month we did like, oh, well, let's do a theme month because we've never done one before, and a lot of people do them, and that might be fun. But we decided to do April because it's Heather's birthday. We're going to do another one in September for mine. We did Bat Month, and so we just picked a couple of different genres within Batman, between comics and animated series and the movies, and just talked about that. And I was kind of blown away by how much response we got from that, because Batman's super popular.
We did do outlines for that, though.
We did
so.
outlines for that, so we would have something to talk about.
and-
And normally with us, we don't.
On the outline thing, I would say our first podcast, we almost scripted it. And it was so stiff, and we were like, we don't need that. So the
Yeah.
next podcast, we had nothing, and we were like,
You need something.
we
in
need something.
between, yeah.
Like, you at least need
Bullet
a
points.
starting point and an ending point with discussion topics in between. You don't have to hit every topic, but you at least have to have that basic outline to guide you, because it's okay to go off the rail. It's a podcast, right? You're just having a conversation. That's what a
What if
podcast
you're
is.
so you're solo?
But just by himself.
Do you,
As
He does
as-
voices.
As a solo podcaster, it's super duper easy for me to go off of the rails, and I could be. Perfect example was during before. For those of you who read comic books, you know that a while back Captain America said "Hail Hydra."
Everyone lost it.
Lost their minds. And when I got to that particular story, when I was reviewing it, it was easy for me to turn what was about a 30-minute show. I think I went about an hour and 20 minutes, because it was easy for me to tell people to calm down. Right. It's okay. It's not the way y'all think it is. And it was real easy for me to go off the rails and get off topic. And having somebody there to help you could be like, dude, calm down. Okay, just we need to get back on topic. But yeah, I also try to, like he said, I try to, do humor, and every so often in the show there's a little bit of a voice, maybe every so often. But yeah,
I still have the one
it's
from our 100th episode that you sent the whole clip. You sound like Boomhauer.
oh yeah, the dang old nerdy bitches up in there, they do a good job. They do right there.
But whenever you do a podcast, you have to play to your strengths. My fellow podcaster right here, he needs an outline that is quite strict, if we're being honest.
Not more of an outline. You have segments.
I have segments,
And everything
then I
follows in
have.
those segments.
So what we do is we separate our podcast in segments, and we have audio bits that separate those segments. In those segments, we have bullet points, which we follow.
Yes,
So
I do.
it honestly just depends. It just depends who you're working with. If you're doing solo, you have the freedom to do these rants, but at the same time, if you're doing solo, you kind of get lost in those rants, and that is the downside of solo. But when you work with someone, you have to know how they talk. Are they receptive to, hey, what is your point of view? Are they going to say, oh, well, I agree with you? And so you have to get to know your fellow podcaster and see what they want to do and how they'll bounce those ideas off you.
Yeah, I
I just work
get
better
to-
bouncing off of the ideas. That's just how it works.
I got to guest on a podcast last year, filling in for a friend of mine whose co-host had left, and I said, well, are there any notes? Is there, what do you do? Because again, we're pretty free form. We have an idea. We do a basic outline just so we don't forget and go completely off the reservation. But and I just said, oh, she's coming over to my house in like an hour. Like, hey, can you, what do you have? Whatever. And she's like, oh, I didn't send you the show notes. And I was like, no, you go ahead and email them to me. 23 pages, y'all. 23 pages of script and dialogue, and use this dialect, and this is who's talking. And it was so different than what we do And I was like, well, it's a good thing I know how to read off a piece of paper without sounding like I'm reading off a piece of paper, because otherwise I wouldn't have had enough time. But it was such a different experience, and it was so much fun. I had a really good time doing it. And so it kind of opens up ideas for other things. Like, I wouldn't mind getting involved with like an audio drama or something where you do the voices, or you have more of a production quality to it. You've got sounds in the background and music and whatever. We kind of went that way. We did a couple of D&D podcasts that we recorded, and they kind of had that. You know, we have a little bit of creak here or a little bit of music here that kind of goes with it more than our jaunty little theme song that we usually have. So
We did that as well when we played some board games. Of course, we're a Geek and Nerd podcast, and we played House of Danger, Choose Your Own Adventure board game, and we put in so many sound bites. It was ridiculous. Audio dramas are fun. Playing D&D games, board games are fun, but you have to realize how much effort and time goes into it. It's a lot. I think I downloaded hundreds of audio clips for all those, for the creek, for opening a chest, for a leaky wall, for a river. You don't understand.
a 2-hour podcast took
my
me about
database
20
for all
hours.
these
Yes.
sounds, too.
So, you know, bear with caution, because there's a lot of editing that goes involved with, especially if you're doing gameplay, because there's so much downtime and
Right.
boringness and bouncing the table and weird things you don't really think about when you're just playing a game, that when you're podcasting you would never do. You would never, eat chips while you're
No.
Please don't do that.
Don't eat while you're
Unless
recording.
that's your thing, is your podcast is you
Snacks,
eating
right.
snacks the
And
whole time,
that could be
and
a
that's
very
fine.
lucrative thing.
People
So
do it.
something to look
People-
into.
I know people that do it. I know people that smoke weed on their podcast. People do what they do, and if that's your sound, that's okay. But just like randomly crunching through while you're talking is not
Yeah.
really advisable. And
Everybody has their kinks, but come on.
well, and like I know the two of us are like massive like snobs when it comes to audio quality. So if I listen to a new show and their audio is terrible, or we didn't edit our first like 93 episodes. So, we've got nothing on that. But we had good sound quality. We weren't, we didn't sound like we were in an echo chamber. We didn't have a crackling and, bumps too much. And, but when I hear one that sounds like you're in the bottom of a well smoking something you probably shouldn't be.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of our podcast.
But
For me, it's not something that
honestly, I would say though, for your first episode, no problem. You're gonna learn, and
gonna get better.
you're gonna learn. You just said 90 podcasts it
Yeah.
took you
Yeah.
to even edit one,
Yeah,
right?
well,
So
yeah.
don't be afraid to do it though. I know people that started with Guitar Hero microphone
Yeah.
and just started recording. If you want to do it, the biggest step is to do it.
Yeah.
You can learn all the other stuff. A lot of people are scared of the
Learn as you go.
We're still learning. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been, 127 episodes, and we're
The
still
technical side, you can
learning
learn.
all
There's
the time.
YouTube videos, there's other podcasters. I mean, we all talk to each other and,
Yeah.
hey, did you know you could do this? Whoa, wow, I didn't know that.
I know, it's like, hey, I just found this plugin extension, and it saved like 8 hours off my editing. You're like, ugh, where's this been all my life?
Yeah.
But that's the thing.
An
that
auto balancer. Oh my god.
we have a community, which is pretty cool. And especially here in Houston, we actually have a pretty large community of podcasters, and most of them are kind of geeks and nerds, which is a lot of fun. So we do a lot of these conferences together. We, again, see each other mostly once a year, but we saw each other twice this year. That's a lot. I know. We went to another thing, and 2 people there. It's crazy. But
So, how many people are actually, the barrier is the gear? You think, I can't get into this, it's too expensive.
Okay.
You have a
so-
phone?
Yeah.
You can do a podcast.
The
Whenever-
the Podbean app.
No, but you got to
It
start.
actually is it's surprisingly good if you use it like one of those, the earplugs with the mic. Surprisingly good.
you would be surprised.
Whenever we go to conventions and we do interviews, we can't lug around equipment while talking to these people. Whenever you're doing interviews, especially if someone wants to get into that, going to conventions and traveling, you got to be on the fly. Like, you got to walk up to someone, hey, you want to do an interview? I can only do it right now. Okay, let's do it right now. So we interview on our phone. We have an app. It sounds great, especially in a
What is the
screaming
app?
room.
Please show us.
I'm getting there.
I have.
Is it Anchor?
No, it is
No,
not
it's,
Anchor.
it's actually very simple. It's just called Smart Recorder.
It's called
Smart
so
Recorder,
it's
yeah.
called Smart Recorder, and we also use an app to take out the background music, and we use Leveler.
Sure.
and that's
Yeah,
what we use.
the levelator.
Yeah.
Yes, Levelator.
Yeah, you do not have to go out and spend $130 on a Blue Yeti like everybody does.
But even if you did, $100 to get started on something that could last you a long time is not a terrible commitment.
If you've
but
got-
there are also a lot cheaper options.
Yeah.
There's a
So
ton
let me
of
just
cheaper
ask,
options.
what was your first microphones, everyone?
Mine was the Yeti,
Which kind?
the
Blue.
$100 one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's with these type of mics right here.
This is what I use now.
I believe my first mic was a $20 mic on Amazon. Just a no brand, no name XLR mic.
I just got 3 for $40. It's
Yeah.
a pretty good deal.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
mine.
probably have the black ones
Yeah,
that come in a
yeah,
case.
They come in a case?
Yeah, I've got those too. I
This-
have actually
got the
used
bag
them.
for the case right here. I didn't bring the case.
They actually sound pretty darn good for 40
They're
bucks.
amazing, yeah.
They're not a bad mic.
Yeah, Blue Yeti for us, and like I said, there's 3 of us, and we just put it in the middle of the table and talked.
That's what we,
Good. It was good audio. It was great audio, but it's good audio enough to get started.
that's what we use for our gameplay.
And then we progressed
episodes.
as we
Yeah.
went
Blue
along.
Yeti
You know.
right in the middle of the table.
So what I used first is I bought the Snowball Yeti, and it's just a little tiny sphere. And I think regular full price, it's like 40, 50 bucks. I bought him a Snowball, and I got that off eBay refurbished for 30 bucks. It's great sounding. It's, made by Yeti, the same company that makes the nice tall ones. It's just a level down, and it's easy to start with. You just plug it into your computer. It's a USB. So
She
Yeah,
actually
I
hated
didn't-
my omnidirectional
it
one.
didn't work.
I think
it
that
didn't work. I had to buy you a microphone. It
we
didn't
were
work.
actually podcasting for a year and a half before I ever bought a microphone because her husband was a podcaster already, and so he produced for us, and we just were sat at the table like this across from each other. You don't ever want to sit side by side and record because you get feedback, but sit across from each other, and these microphones just pick you. It's nice. You don't get a ton of ambient noise. You don't get a lot of that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I didn't do it. So.
They'll pick up you. They don't pick up background noise unless your dog farts or something, and that just pulls in. Nobody knows why.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every
So, I mean, with microphones, it's, you can go on YouTube and you can check out all kinds of microphones. You really can. And, like, for me, I guarantee you the only mic that I don't have when I started out is my Blue Yeti, and that's just because I gave it to somebody who was starting out. And I was like, here, try this Blue Yeti out. Don't go spend the 120 bucks on it. But I've got all the mics that I have, and I use it's a $67 mic, and it's an XLR USB mic. It's a great mic. I absolutely love it. I enjoy it. Do not think you have to go out and spend
Right.
300 bucks on a mic,
Exactly.
a shotgun
And-
mic.
And watch
Never
out for
spend that
the
much money.
producers that will. I mean, I work in podcast production, but I don't go out and say, "Hey, for $400, I will
Yeah.
buy all of your equipment for you and pretend to tell you how to use it." Because honestly, what happens is you get the stuff and you get on YouTube and you watch the free video and you go and you play with it and you practice with it and you go, "Well, that sounds like crap. How do I make that sound better? Let's watch this video on that." We didn't start out that way, but
Yeah.
it's easy way to start. And that is the biggest barrier as most people have is I don't know how to get on iTunes. I don't know how to, you can figure that out. That is very quick. And again, meet the podcasting community because we will all tell you our secrets. We don't care. We're not going to sell it to you.
They're not secrets if
I
they're
will
on
if you
YouTube.
want to.
I mean, I will tell anybody anything they want to know. All they have to do is hit subscribe.
So his advice can be bought with a subscription.
Give us a 5-star
No,
review on
but also, I mean, talk about the software. A lot of people, like, if you want
Yes.
to do extensive editing, there's
What the
free
fuck is
software
happening?
out there.
What is happening?
Randy, as
Randy,
soon as you
welcome
walked
to
in,
the thank
the
you.
lights turned out.
It's all good. It's nice and ambient now. I'm feeling a little more comfortable.
Please
Okay.
come in. It's
Nice
good.
and dark.
Little-
It's
This is the other
perfect.
thing with podcasting. You just roll with it.
Yeah,
Whatever
just
happens,
roll
you
with
just
it.
roll with it.
But so yeah, what do you guys use for your audio editing?
I use Audition.
I use Audacity. It's free.
Audacity. Audacity is free.
I'm a Mac guy, so I use GarageBand. Also free with my computer.
Just leave it off. That's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
We like it nice and romantic.
You know,
It's a nice.
No.
They
ambiance.
must be dimming it from the other room.
Messing with the switch and they're like, why isn't this doing
Right.
anything? What's happening?
What do you guys use?
We use Audacity. I use
Yeah.
Audacity.
I used to edit, and then she does a lot better job than me, so it was easier that way.
Both Audacity and GarageBand, I think there's a million YouTube videos that
Oh yeah,
you can
Audition too.
Yeah.
And Adobe is themselves put out a butt ton
And
of
again, like,
videos.
I had a podcast that we were recording, and I kept getting this echo. And I'm like, why is this echo going? And I talked to a fellow podcaster, and I'm like, I'm getting this echo. He goes, zoom in on the audio file, and you'll see you're like a millisecond off on your 2 files. And I was like,
Yeah,
man,
line them up, yeah.
I would have spent all day editing out the other audio, like, just to get it to sound good. And
Oh, yeah.
within 2 seconds of talking to another
Was about-
podcaster, I was
about
like,
3
oh.
months ago, I learned the noise capture and reduce noise. I was like, just
I know.
my entire life.
Wait. Click, and it's fixed.
And it's well, because we were actually doing, and it was the first time that we had edited an episode with 3 separate voice tracks on it at that point. Because before we'd have people around and it's just merged together and it is what it is, or it's Zencaster and merged together. But we had, actually Randy was
Randy.
on our show. We did a book club with Randy, and we had 3 separate audio tracks, and it's hard. Like, you're like, holy crap. This is real. And about halfway through the file, Randy's file actually had this weird buzzing noise that just started out of nowhere, and I was like, what is, like,
He started brushing his teeth like during it. It was very annoying.
shame on you. He started
For 45
vacuuming. I don't know
minutes.
what he was doing, but it's just this long, like, buzzing, and I was like, maybe I can go and isolate that just on his track and see if I can remove it. And I did. It was like, that was great, because otherwise you've got a terrible.
Just leave it. Just leave it.
No, yeah, no. We can't be sitting here with
So, so we're still all finding out new stuff every day, and every time we get a tip, it's like, oh my gosh, this just saved my life. And then we, fill that time with other weird things that we decide to try, but yeah, that's the fun part.
So we have a tight community, and we can freely ask cross-promotion. You be on my show, I be on your show.
Yep.
What would you recommend for people who aren't in a community that don't know how to cross-promote? What are some tips?
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yes,
Social
I
media.
totally agree.
Most definitely.
Even Facebook, there's local Facebook podcast groups that regularly meet up and stuff. I think just getting on there and saying, hey, I'm thinking about podcasting, can I join your group?
Yep.
Nobody's going to say no.
What we do as well is we just started a segment called Comic Corner.
Oh, yes.
And what we love to do is we love to help out anyone actually. We love to help indie artists, indie small businesses, and indie comic writers and designers. So each week we reach out on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and we say, hey, let's review your comic, give us your info, you share our show, and we share your comic. And so we get free comics every week, and we review it.
And I burnt through a whole toner cartridge doing that the last time.
Print it off every single
I
page.
couldn't read it on the screen. It flickered and hurt my
He's
eyes.
colorblind, so it's just,
It's a
some weird
whole
stuff
new
going
world
on.
for me.
Yeah, I would say absolutely asking for cross promotions, getting involved in groups. And honestly, on Twitter, we have a pretty large following because we work at it. We actively go out and we engage with other shows. It's social media, not stalker media. Like, you need to interact with other shows, like things, retweet things, follow people. They'll follow you back.
Comment,
And just,
talk to
Yeah,
people.
Talk to people.
Just talk to people, enjoy it. Like,
I'm on Twitter and nobody's following me, but I haven't said anything yet.
Ever, yes. We get that all the time. They're like, oh, where's you do it? I was like, you have to work at it. It is work, but it's fun work. We have made some amazing friends through podcasting, through Twitter. People that I've never met in real life, but I consider to be some of my very best friends just because we're on there all day long talking to each other and asking questions and saying, hey, what about this? What about that? Or just, how's your life going? And that's nice too. Because sometimes when you're podcasting, and especially, I don't know if you feel this, it can feel like you're screaming into the void, right? Like, there's no direct, like if you're doing a TV show, you get canned laughs, right? If you're doing a video, you get people liking and subscribing. Podcasting is different. You don't see it immediately. You don't see if people like it. You don't see their reactions when you do it. Now, they may come to you later and say, hey, I listened to your show and it was great, but they may not. They may never step up and say, I listened to it. So again, you can go forever just thinking, well, I'm not making a difference. I had one of our friends is a true crime podcaster here in Houston, and she told me, she's like, oh, you're the reason I started my podcast. I was like, I am? I had no idea.
Aw, that's sweet.
Well, she's like, I asked you about it, and you just said, just start. I was like, that's what I tell everybody who says they want to do it. I was like, just do it. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it forever.
Exactly.
If it's not your thing, you can stop. but it
you,
could be.
You can also adjust, right? You could start out with this idea of what your podcast is, and then something else comes along, and you're like, "Oh, let me try this."
That sounds like an even better idea.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it might not work, or it may work, but
the past
you got to
few
try it.
years-
You got to change things. You got to it's like anything. You got to refresh every once in a while.
Yeah.
In the past 2-3 years, I've been on 3 podcasts.
Yeah.
One disbanded, the other one we moved, just pretty much created.
Yeah.
And so don't worry about leaving podcasts that aren't working. If it's not working, don't fear it. Make something new out of what you know can work and what doesn't. It's okay to fail.
And talk to each other and be open to saying, like, I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? She's like, meh. Like,
Exactly.
I'm not
Yes.
feeling it. And I'm like,
I can hear her saying
okay,
that,
well,
too.
yeah. That's exactly what
Hey,
I'm like.
They got a lot of those.
This is a shit idea.
Terrible. I just don't feel like
But
doing it.
I think we should hear from the guy who doesn't have somebody to say,
Yes,
"Don't
yes,
do
yes.
that."
See, the thing for me is I have an idea, and a lot of the time it'd be like, when I started my podcast, I talked about comic books, I talked about TV, I talked about movies, and I did, like geek news. And it was this hour-and-a-half long podcast. And for a while I was looking at it and I was like, you know what? I don't really like listening to the sound of my voice for an hour and a half. How do I expect other people to do it? So I started cutting things out. And I was like, everybody's out there talking about the CW superhero shows. They don't need to hear about that from me. Everybody's talking about all this news. They don't need to hear about that from me. But what I was hearing is I was hearing these hour-long podcasts talking about comic books, and 45 minutes of it was what's going on in your life. I wanted to be a half-hour-long podcast about comic books. And because there was nobody there to tell me, dude, don't do that. Sounds like a stupid idea. I could do it because I solo podcast. And trust me when I tell you, it's not always easy. There are times where weeks come around and I get super duper busy, and there's nobody there to go, dude, we gotta do our show. Dude, we're running out of time. It's like Monday and we were supposed to record 3 days ago.
I think it takes a special kind of person to solo pod. I'm not sure I could do it. Like, honestly, I just, like, even trying to record a quick clip for somebody, I'm like, it's like trying to record your voicemail message. You ever do that? And you have to do it like 15 times and maybe script it out a little bit beforehand. And
The promo that I did for you guys for your Bat Month show, I started at 10 o'clock at night, and I had an outline, and at 1:30 in the morning, my wife was looking at me going, are you going to come to bed? It's like 1:30. And I'm going, oh man, because I had to have that perfection. And eventually it was just like, I was just like, you know what, I liked this one the best.
Yep.
And I shot it over to him.
promos
and
are like that too. It's
yeah,
like, it's
it's-
And we put
somebody's
it
gonna.
on there.
It was
Yeah.
there, and I
And
sat
I'm sure I listened to it when I popped it in, and it was lovely.
sat there and I was
We
like,
don't listen, we just
but
comment.
the hardest critic is yourself,
Always.
and forever. And if you're hard on yourself, it's okay, but don't get caught up in being hard on yourself to where it prevents you from doing something you really enjoy.
Don't bully
Yeah.
yourself.
Exactly. You get bullied enough by your listeners.
Yeah.
That
This is true.
Or people that don't listen to your show and pretend they listen to your show just to yell at you on the internet. So
So do you
don't
guys
worry.
face a lot of trolls? How do you deal with that?
We have had
Ignore 'em.
exactly 2 trolls.
And those were, if I'm wrong, correct me. They were like misogynist, right? Like
We
they were-
had one that
Okay.
was, and we had one that was just a jackass.
a wiener.
Yeah.
The thing with misogynists is like you're mad that they're misogynists, but then they usually like attack something, and you're like, oh, that's bullshit.
Wait,
Okay,
hold up.
the very first one we ever got, it was
Yeah.
about a year and a half in, and this guy sent us just nasty, just creeper kind of message. And it was something, bushy eyebrows. And we're like, fuck you,
It's like,
I'm sorry.
all the rest.
My eyebrows
That's
are
it.
great.
That's
The rest I
These
don't care.
eyebrows.
dare you?
I trim regularly.
We're like, listen, I have got nothing on high school me. So, yeah. So, and it's funny the things that you do focus on, right? If people tell me, like people I don't care about will tell me, oh, I listen to your show and it's not my thing. I'm like, I don't care. Fine. It's a little more hurtful for me for somebody to be like, I just don't want to listen to your podcast. I've never listened to it. I'm just not that interested in you. And you're like, oh.
I hate the sound of your voice.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, and if
I
you're
do
stop-
too.
If you're stopping from doing it because you think you're gonna hate the sound of your own voice recorded, we all thought that too.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're like.
I
I'm never
still
gonna-
think that.
I'm
That's
never
why I
gonna-
I still
voices.
hate my voice.
I'm never gonna listen to my own voice. I'm never, and I listen to our podcast more than any other, which is.
Yeah. Well, you got when you edit it. When it's
I hated my voice when I started, but then I kept listening. I was like, nah, it's kind of sexy.
That's what sexy do. Yeah. I think that too, but it's me when I'm talking. Yeah, women actually get a lot more complaints about the sound of their voice. It's very common, especially if you have vocal fry, which, you know.
Well, that or high.
You guys talked about that.
It doesn't
Did
matter.
we talk about
Didn't you?
You never hear a guy, you never hear somebody criticize a male podcast on the sound of their voice. They may do other things, or they don't like their attitude, or whatever. You just don't hear that. But for women, it seems to be open game on, we just don't like who you are as a human, and just, all right, so.
For those who don't know, what is vocal fry?
You know, that's like right when you do that, right when
So
you're
think
between
about
it.
when
Trying
you're
to
at,
take
like,
your voice
lowest
too low.
Register, you go too low and it starts to buzz. That's what it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's really common for people, like, okay, so like 7 years ago, it was common for people under 30, and so now it's common for people under 37. So,
As the years go by, we get more specific with our statistics.
and so, but generally, like,
That's
yeah,
how math
people
works.
who are under that threshold, it doesn't actually bother, and people who are over that threshold, it does. There was a whole American, what is that? This American Life? Is that the name of the show?
Yes.
It sounds right.
I remember
Yeah.
I think
On
you
that
you
episode.
tweeted that episode, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I'm
For you
learning
guys,
something today.
Do y'all listen to big shows? I only listen to indie podcasts.
I listen to some big shows. I love the Magnus Archives. I love audio dramas. Like, I live for audio dramas. I listen to mostly just podcasts now. I started going down this rabbit hole where I'm like, I'm just going to listen to a couple a day, and now all I listen is to podcasts.
You should be on Podcoin.
Actually, here's a good question. Who here wants a podcast but is not a podcast listener? Because when I started, I was not a podcast listener.
I'm still hardly.
I was just like, hey, let's do a podcast. And I didn't even know what it was.
I heard a word, I saw a thing, I was like, that's what it is.
I have 5 that I listen to. That's it.
I see us.
Are they big ones or small?
They're us.
We have y'all.
Good,
Hello
you
from the
got
Magic
taste.
Tavern and Idiot with Chris
Oh,
Hardwick.
Hello from the Magic
Hello
Tavern.
from the
Isn't it
Magic-
you
so
that showed me
good.
about that one, Erica?
So I listened to Hello from the Magic Tavern until recently when it just started dragging out really hardcore. So
I like going. I mean, I'm still back at like.
I'm
the
I'm
first
very
season,
early. I'm very
and the
early.
first
But they're
season and like
great.
half the second season's great, but
But
after
like, and
that-
that
But-
one kind of started out as.
But I would
indie
I would
and-
also say
Yes.
don't just listen to nerdy geeky stuff if that's your genre that you want to talk about, but listen to everything. There's I just started listening to this one called Business Wars, and the way the guy does he's a single podcast and he tells a story and has sound effects, and it's like, holy cow, this is amazing. And this guy is like out of Austin just doing it from his house.
Yeah.
So
Even like our
but
1245, you guys put a lot of sound effects and stuff in your episodes. A lot of work, a lot of editing that goes into it.
But you can listen to other things and learn, like, hey, I kind of like how they did that. Maybe I should incorporate a similar thing to mine.
if you're going to start a podcast, I definitely recommend listening to podcasts that are in your genre, especially. See what you like about it, see what you don't like about it. You really have to do your research. And then when you start a podcast, you need to research what you're going to call it and see if those tag or handles are available. Because you can think of a great podcast and then look it up on Twitter and find out there's 20 other podcasts
With the
called
same
that
name.
same
Same
exact
name.
name.
You can come up with a great name, and then everyone lets you sign up with that awesome name. And then when you go to try to use it to, I don't know, promote your show or pay them money to
Yeah.
promote your show, and they go,
Not.
it just isn't bad.
So funny. So she mentioned that Facebook, if you try to run an ad, because Facebook gives you free money sometimes to spend as ads, if you have any cussing, anything like, they will not let you promote it. So
Yeah.
if you have a cuss word in your tagline,
But they let you they let you make the name, they
Right.
let you make the profile.
Yes.
They don't tell you, by the way, maybe this is not a great, honestly, I still would have gone with our name because I
it's
love
a
it.
great name, but
But-
that's something
but
you have
it's-
to research.
It's something that we didn't know about at the time. We
Right.
didn't think about at the time. We thought, well, Apple let us use it and Facebook's
Right.
let us use it. It's fine. And they use it on freaking Sesame Street half the time. I mean, come on, this is not a bad word anymore. It really
Do you
isn't.
think? Well, it is on HBO now, I
That's
guess.
what I'm saying. Big Bird's got a mouth. But I'm just saying that, we didn't know
Yes,
it at the time.
she just said
and
that.
I would recommend, like, if I did another podcast on something else and I wanted to use a curse word in the name, I would do it differently. Just, I would use symbols, or I'd
Yeah.
do something that I could get around that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But you don't know it until it happens to you, or again, meet other people that it's already happened to, and then
Yeah.
don't do that.
If
do
you
something else.
Yeah, if you're also looking to get sponsorship down the road, you might want to
Exactly.
think if you have offended people with your name. So just
It's
FYI.
very true. If you do sponsorship, they have very strict guidelines and they have very strict rules, and that definitely plays a factor into it because you are representing them in a sense.
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
Yeah. Good.
Anybody?
Good call.
Anybody at all?
Do any of you have like creative endeavors outside of podcasting, or is it primarily your?
Oh no, I'm creative all over the place. I write, I blog, I'm a photographer, and yeah.
Do you merge those ever?
She does all of the.
Yeah,
I do.
I
do
would
all of
say,
my design,
especially
social
if you're
media,
doing a
so-
podcast and you want to, and you're a writer, have a blog that goes along with your
Yes.
podcast. It's going to help you 100-fold.
Definitely.
For sure.
I tried to start a blog on my website, and I made a promise to myself. I was like, all right, I'm going to get in hardcore every day. I'm going to do a news story. I'm going to type up a little news story. And then it was like, I haven't written one in like 3 days.
Or you're like, oh, it's been a
So
year
it was
and a
like,
half
and then it was
since I
like,
touched
oh my
blog.
gosh. And now it's been a week. And oh, it's like, you know what? I'm just going to, it was just, I mean, outside of my podcast, I do some photography work. I've just started getting into YouTube and doing things like that. Still kind of iffy on that kind of thing. But I mean, really, my podcast has become my world outside of my family and my work.
Yeah.
I've actually enlisted the help of other people. Like we started basically like a food blog on our website. We call it Beer Appetit. And it's just a buddy of mine that likes fast food and goes out and tries the new fast food and writes for it. And I post it on our webpage. So you can resource other people and let them
Yeah.
help you.
It can be like a network. Like, the podcasting is just part of it.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people work in trade as well, which is nice, if you've got a skill that they don't, and vice versa. Or you can pay someone actual money, and they will put your stuff together. Like I said, a lady pays me actual money, and I produce her podcast for her because she doesn't have the time or the energy or the knowledge to do it beyond the recording. And that's cool. I mean, it's great by me.
Yeah.
If she wants to learn how to do it, then that's great for her too. But, there's always somebody out there who can either point you in the right direction or, if you give them actual currency, they will in fact do it for you.
There's
So,
some guys downstairs in the booth that are out in Katy that are doing that.
They're
So I
editors
check
or
them.
producers.
They have like a recording studio and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, there's a few of them around town.
I was talking to a couple
You bring
of
us
guys.
food?
No, he's been walking around with that bowl Whataburger box.
Son of a bitch.
lies.
That
Don't
guy.
convince him.
Any other questions?
What about if you're not too well versed in the technical side of things, not the equipment, not the recording itself and everything, getting it up there, like if you're not familiar with all these terms like RSS feeds and blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and how much does it cost? I heard like once you start making a lot of episodes, I saw that one of the reasons why I came in here is because of the description of this panel was how to maintain a podcast, not necessarily starting one but maintaining it. I heard like once you start getting a lot of episodes on there, you're paying for a lot of space on the web.
It depends
It
on your
depends
hosting.
on your host.
Libsyn, right, they only charge you for what you upload. And so therefore, if the world downloads it, you don't get charged anymore. So there's different programs out there for different things. We use Libsyn, so I don't know about some of the others.
Yeah, I'm a Libsyn guy too.
I
So
use Podbean. It's a monthly fee.
That's where I download my podcast. I didn't know that was a thing.
Okay.
yeah,
and
Yes.
Podbean actually has part
So
of the
SoundCloud,
Podbean app
they're same
is podcast recording. You sign up and there's a record button, boop, right there, and it uploads directly to Podbean.
Well, and a lot of these like
It was just an
Libsyn.
Android version of iTunes.
No. Like it is a podcatcher, but it's also
Yeah.
a host in
It's-
itself.
the one thing with picking your host, look at the fine print because
Yeah.
there are
Most definitely
hosting
look at the fine
sites that say your podcast takes off and somebody wants to make a TV show of it. They own the rights to your podcast. So make sure you own the
iHeartRadio
rights.
has that fine print.
iHeartRadio does?
Yes,
Anchor. does.
Anchor
Anchor does as well.
I heard there was a lot of problems with that because one of the guys I listen to off and on is Bill Burr.
Yeah.
And he talks about how he doesn't go on Stitcher because of that.
Well, Stitcher's just a listening app.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Stitcher's just a catcher.
They don't host
He
it.
said that they can put commercials on there on your show.
Yeah.
But they get money for it and you don't get a dime.
Oh, yeah, that sounds
that's
right.
well, and that's for anybody. Podbean just started a thing where you can put commercials on there, but they're going to get 90% of the revenue, and they might give you like a couple of cents every month.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not a lot of. It's
that's
not a way
the
to make money. It's not a
And
way to do it.
don't get into podcasting thinking you're
No.
going to make money.
Right.
You're going to spend
Yeah.
money, and a lot of it.
For me,
over time.
I've used Libsyn too, like since the beginning, and I did a lot of research, and I actually love Libsyn.
Yeah.
Like, they have programs you can start at $5 a month and go
they
up
make it
to
really
a bunch of but they broadcast your podcast to every, and soon Pandora's going to have it, and they were the first to talk to them about getting podcasts on Pandora, and they're very about podcasters.
We
They
actually got on
have
Spotify in, like, 5
videos.
minutes because of it. If you
Yeah.
try to go through
Oh, yeah.
Spotify on your own, it'd take like 6 months.
Yeah, Spotify, everything. And they have a lot of videos and a lot of things that'll help. They have a podcast about podcasting that's very informative too as
There's
well.
a lot of podcasts.
So,
podcasting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think like with Podbean, there actually has a thing where it's like, do you want to upload to Spotify? You go click, and
Yeah.
the next day they're like, you're on Spotify.
That's what Libsyn was. Oh,
So
hey, we just
Libsyn,
added this.
it is easy, but it can get expensive. What we did is we bought our hosting through GoDaddy, and then we use
There's a plugin called PowerPress for
yes.
Blueberry.
Yep.
We
Yeah,
use that.
that's what we
It's
use.
like listening to them, but they also offer a plugin that works exactly the same way that those things do. That you can just load to your WordPress on your hosted site. So you can actually host the files on the same site that your website is built on, and then use PowerPress to manage everything. It works just as well. You own all the rights. You never have any kind of issues with anybody uploading any kind of advertisements.
You don't have an issue with a lot of people downloading all of a sudden?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
They don't
Justin's
limit.
like, I know.
They don't.
Those first world problems, Joe.
yeah.
When I was doing like 1,200 downloads a day,
Yeah.
no issues.
Awesome. Awesome.
They don't say you hit your download limit. There's no limits. Everything is saved on their site. You can have hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of episodes, and they keep it all there in their files.
Yeah, I think
Very
I
cool.
whenever you're picking a host site of any kind, really, you have to think about what your podcast is going to be. Is it going to be a monthly show, a weekly show, a daily show? I know people who damn near podcast.
Is it a
daily.
is it a mini series?
Yeah.
Well,
There's
that's the
people
thing,
that
like,
just
the more, especially most of these, the more you upload, the more it's going to cost you, right? So maybe like what 250 megs a month or something, like whatever it is. I think that's what it is.
I don't know. I wait until the bar gets too high, and then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, let's
This
wait
is
until
like,
the
let's-
first.
Let's wait until Friday to post that episode. Or, if you say, well, this month we have a lot of content, or we had 4 6-hour episodes that we need to upload, and it's important to us to do it, we can just pay for extra that month. It's not gonna bump you into a whole other tier or whatever.
And this is where?
This is
Libsyn.
Libsyn
Libsyn.
for us. But I think, like I said, check all
a lot of
different
them
ones.
do
your
it.
resources.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Libsyn is super easy to use. Don't get me wrong, but it can get pricey for certain things that you want.
Absolutely.
Anchor is another very strong up and coming app. They're
So is Himalaya.
Himalaya.
I heard about that. That
Anchor
sounds.
will
I
take
haven't
your
really
show, though.
delved
A
into
lot of
it, but
people
it sounds
use
interesting.
Anchor,
Can
but
do
like
that.
Liz just said, that they'll
Anchor
take
wants to
Yeah.
take your show.
right.
If you become super popular and you're getting like the 1,200 downloads a week, Anchor can be like, hey, guess what? We now own your show.
That
Right.
actually happened to some guys that we know podcasting.
Oh, but they did a sponsorship.
Theirs
yeah.
was they got their podcast was taken away by Dollar Shave Club. So
That's
careful
amazing.
Well,
who you sign up with.
Let's answer some more questions, and then we'll do some giveaways.
yay! Anybody?
That's okay.
Is it mine?
It's a good one. Don't worry.
I keep hearing that maybe starting off you want something to just hear yourself, then start editing later. Do people do live podcasts, and if so, when would
Sure.
be opportunities?
There's a lot of people who do live video podcasts. It just depends on, like with us, I do a lot of ums and yas, wonderfuls. Yes, I agree. Oh yes.
Oh, yes.
So it just depends on you or your co-host and how comfortable they are. Just thinking off the top of their head,
Well,
honestly.
it's also how much you want to edit, right?
Yeah.
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 If you're okay with the ums and yes, and
I
you
don't.
go with it.
I have gotten to the point. In the beginning, I was editing. I was editing everything. Every time I said every time there was a pause, it's just everything. I am now to the point where the only editing that I do is I take off the dead air at the beginning before I start talking and the dead air at the end. And I've gotten to the point now where I don't even take off the dead at the end. After the theme, if they've stuck around to the end of the theme music, sweet.
Enjoy the dead air.
If not, and it's usually only about 5 seconds of dead air, but I'm the kind of person where I am real, and this is me, and this is the way it is, and yes, I say a lot. I don't do it while I'm talking to you guys, but that's a lot of that has to do with I'm not trying to stick to a specific topic.
Yeah.
And you can
And-
definitely over edit where it
Yeah.
sounds
Yes.
like you don't take a single breath and people are like, what's happening?
I know.
Yes.
It sounds like
And it's just,
really
and welcome to the episode this week. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, that only took 5 seconds. Thank you, bye.
The nice thing I do like since we've started editing, because we're kind of bad at talking over each other, we get excited. You get talking
Sure.
to like she moved to California, so I don't get to see her like I used to. So we just once a week get to chat for whatever, and it's like, oh my God, let me tell you about this thing. Blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, oh God, and you're like this mass of words and things that don't make any sense, but you kept talking, like you don't stop and fix it. With you edit, you can change that around and make it sound like you're normal humans who let the other person finish talking before you start, when that is not in fact the case.
In general,
It's like, just gonna move this over here. I'm gonna
And
take
that's
that
and that's the
image
kind of
there.
technical thing that comes with spending the time working on your editing. You know, if you really want to make sure that your editing is professional and it sounds great and it's absolutely amazing, and that's the kind of thing you spend time doing, learning how to have 1 track and 2 track. And
It's a
You
lot
can-
of work. though.
Again, you
But
can
I would say
also
a live
outsource.
podcast,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Our
Whatever.
podcast
Yeah.
was
Once
essentially
you start
live.
podcasting, you'll podcast anywhere.
It's
Yeah.
practice too. If
We-
you practice enough,
I'm on
then it's
podcast all
yeah.
the time.
We
Anybody's
do-
like, want to be a guest? I'm like, yeah, dude.
every single podcast that comes to Comicpalooza does a show live on the floor.
yes.
And we're there, and it's hard to say stream it on the internet because we're at the building we're in, and
Yeah,
there's a
that
lot
is
of people taking up bandwidth. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but it's right there, it's real, it's raw, and yeah.
Any more questions or topics you guys want to cover?
But we're available. Come bug us.
Yeah, we're around.
Yeah, we all have information up here, so feel free
Yes.
to take cards and
Yeah,
hit
we
us
have-
up on all our
have
social
giveaways.
We
media.
have,
I'm
we
sure.
have a couple prizes. How are we going to give them away? You think?
don't.
So what I
I've got
recommend-
a nerd. You want to ask a nerdy question and see if they answer it?
I mean, what we can do is we can, like you said, think of a number, and the first person to guess that number is prize.
Oh man, that might take all day.
I mean,
I'd
Whoa.
just
All
say,
right.
1 through 10. 1 through 10.
Thinking of a number between
There's six of us.
784.
There's a 40% chance there's only 40% chance that they won't give it.
Stop selling your stats.
So you're an accountant, right?
Close.
Really close. Surprisingly close, but that's beside the point.
Supply chain manager is an accountant.
Oh, they are not accountants. ET dogs. Let's have a conversation after.
Later.
How about between 0 and 100? And then
Sure.
how about Erica? You pick the number, and then everybody see if they can get it.
Okay, I got it.
that was quick.
All right.
I know.
What do you got?
No. No. No.
Are we doing to 100?
No.
Good number.
Yes.
That's a good
That's a good
number.
Good number.
42
Good
is
guess.
the best number.
What's the prize? What's the prize?
We have lots of prizes.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
the surprise?
For the first prize, we'll do some Mega Man pins. We got 4 amazing Mega Man pins.
So maybe we'll have to
just
get
see
it
who
within
wants
5.
Oh, you're gonna make me do math now?
Let's just do 1 through 20. Like,
All right,
what?
let's do 1 through 20.
We'll be doing
I'll
it.
do 1 through 20. Okay.
All right,
I got it in my head.
she's got it. Let's go. Yep.
No. No. No.
Ooh.
You got it.
There you go.
There you go.
This is working.
Like this. Like this.
Okay.
Winging it.
We have a nerdy bitch swag bag. I guess I'll think of the number. You want me to think of the number?
It's got swag in it,
European
too.
cotton.
I'm sorry.
It's made of European cotton.
Sure it is. All right, I've got the number.
1 through 20, right?
Yes, 1
All
through.
right.
Nope. 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 Nope.
Right, we're just going through the numbers.
100. He's got it.
All right, guy in the green shirt. All right.
You want to go? You
Oh,
want
is it my turn now? Is it my turn now? Okay, I'm gonna pick a number between 1 and 20. Go.
What's the gift?
Oh,
What is the
No, you have to come and find
They're gonna buy.
out. So I have trade paperbacks.
Oh.
That's right.
So is this a whole collection or just one?
No, you get to pick one, but I'll let you pick one.
God, man.
So
what's
the people that
point?
come on Sunday aren't gonna get to pick one, so you guys get first pick.
Nice.
And some of these are indie books.
So, was that Saga?
Yeah.
All right, what's your number?
I got my number.
Mine.
No.
7.
No. What? No. Nope. Nope.
We did not specify even numbers.
No, we did not.
No pie. Nope. Yep.
All right. So pick your trade
You got to bring us
paperback.
Whataburger, though.
Let me see. Ooh, what's this one? This one looks awesome.
Which one?
Oh, Dark Knight Returns.
Yes.
Nice.
The Last Crusade.
That's what's that.
Pick you a trade, my brother.
All right, so you guys,
Hang on.
It's like my trade is all of them.
do you have any recommendations? 'Cause-
Giant Days is a good read.
Very well. There you go.
Giant Days is a good read.
I picked Giant Days. I win. High five.
All right.
What else?
I think that Erica. Erica has a big one, and then we have a.
Yeah, I'll do that one last.
Okay.
All right. For a microphone,
Ooh.
Yes. So for those,
You already won a prize, sir.
so for those of you thinking about starting out, here could be your first mic.
there you go. This is, I think it's XLR, yeah.
XLR.
It's free.
For the newbies, XLR is this cable.
No one.
No.
14.
We had
Two threes,
threes.
no. Nope. 7 was it?
Oh, way to go, guys!
Put it in his tote bag.
Now you have a tote bag to carry it in. I think that's. Oh, we got some
Are you
hats.
doing
and
new
no-
hats or?
I have people I'm
Okay.
going to give those hats to.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is a Matt Ferguson lithograph. It's the Avengers Infinity War. It's an 8.25 by 11.75 print. These are limited editions. These go for about $50 online. I had this, I didn't know it was worth anything, so I don't really care.
It's like listening to the Home Shopping
So
Network.
it's really pretty poster.
It is
And it's
pretty.
nice, thick quality. This is got it from Bottleneck, so it's really nice.
Yeah.
I got a number. Okay. No. No.
9.
Yes. You got it.
Nice.
Very cool, guys.
Is that that's all? Where can you guys all be found this weekend and beyond? People want to follow your show.
I work here. So.
She'll be here all weekend. Be sure to tip
I'm
your
here.
waitress.
Oh, where are we on that on? That's the big
Okay.
question right there.
We're everything at Raging Nerds Pod. We are. Everything.
Except on the iHeart.
No, we're on iHeart as Dogfin Studios.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, Dogfin Studios. But you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, iHeartRadio, Spotify,
Google Play
Google
Music.
Play, iTunes, Stitcher.
Pretty much anything,
Anything.
that can host a podcast, we're on.
That's probably, that. We should ask that. What do people listen on?
Yeah, what do you guys listen on?
What?
Pocket
Yeah.
Cast.
I use Pocket
is
Cast
good.
too. Yeah.
iTunes.
Well, I use Podcoin now.
I like Stitcher. I don't know why.
I like Stitcher,
I use Stitcher
when
for a
I'm
little
not
while.
using
I
Podcoin.
have an Android, so I use Google Play because I have an Android.
I'm Apple, but I'm mad at Apple.
I'm the exact same.
All right. Anyways, I can be found on everything too. 3 Beers and a Mic on all the social media. Anybody interested in podcasting, hit me up, DM me. I'm always free for information to help you guys out. So
What was the name of your podcast again?
Walker the Geek. I am.
Here,
Walker
take
the
a
Geek.
pen.
Here, actually, you know what?
Pins and cards.
Take a
that
card
are
too.
ready.
There's a QR code right there on the back of my card, and it will take you directly to my
Okay.
website where all the stuff is.
oh damn, you're so fancy.
No, right?
we're
everybody's.
nerdbitches.com. You can find us everywhere. And if you guys are here tomorrow,
Yeah, tomorrow night we're having a big party.
we're having a party. We're doing Cards Against Humanity, 8:30 p.m. somewhere in this vicinity.
It's a live podcast. You will be on the podcast if you play.
I'm in sales.
Yeah.
I need
No, take them.
Take 'em.
We
Yeah,
don't
we-
throw- we don't
that's-
throw 'em out
yes,
there for
We
us.
all have stuff up
So-
here,
Stuff up
pins,
here,
cards.
buttons,
Feel free to grab what you
stickers.
Stickers, we have pins. Try to take one per person, so you have leftover ones.
Yes.
Seriously, any information you
That's a
need.
good one.
If you grab one of our business cards, you can totally reach out to us. Just don't be creepy, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to reach out to me and be creepy,
By the way, that's how we deal with trolls. Block.
That's exactly how we deal.
I will tell
I
you.
say
that-
we've actually had more than two, but I just go and block them. So it's like,
Yeah, like as soon as it happens, you just.
don't care.
I will tell you that the only trolls I have ever had to deal with are the people who constantly tell me your opinion is stupid.
Oh yeah.
And recently,
Ours are just nothing. That I can take.
Batman has become not my most favorite person as of recent. He's everywhere, and I'm sick of it.
Right.
And
We just
he's
did
got
Batman.
2 new
Sorry.
series coming out, mini series, and I was like, oh look,